All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for the third of our webinars in this webinar series on childcare data. Today, we are going to be talking about how various different tribes are using childcare assistance from intertribal software to track their childcare data. You will have an opportunity to hear how they're using it and hear how it's working for them, and also ask them questions throughout. We're going to be hearing from a variety of different tribes and programs, so I'm excited to be joining them here today. Today's session is really about being able to hear a story and have a dialogue about it. So we are open to you asking questions in the chat, and also raising your hand and coming off of mute and asking a question in real time. A little bit about our organization. We are the National Indian Child Care Association, and we are the tribal voice for tribal childcare and early learning all across the nation. We represent all tribal CCDF grantees, as well as tribes who are implementing early learning programs in their communities that are outside of CCDF programming. Our staff is all Native. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and Monica Pisano is a member of our team as well, and she is a member of the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina. I'm just going to pop this up here for a hot second and then introduce intertribal software. If you'd like to contact us, there's all these different ways. We can drop this in the chat too, but that's how you can reach out to us. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to take this time right now to introduce Intertribal Software, who is one of our partners in helping tribes get their data squared away, particularly around childcare. They have solutions much beyond that, so you're welcome to converse with them about that. But today we are going to be talking about childcare assistance, and I'm really excited to introduce them and the guests that they have joining us. We have Elizabeth Thompson from the Choctaw Nation, Lacey Hickey from the Peoria Tribe of Indians, Bridget Toby from the Cherokee Nation, Joe Ottone and Newman Frank from the Muskogee Nation. And we have one other person joining us. I'm not sure she's on yet, but Victory Spotted Bear from the Delaware Tribe. So I will turn it over to, I believe, Steve at Intertribal Software, and I'm excited to have you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. We greatly appreciate what you and Monica have done to be able to help us meet and greet and share our message with the CCA programs. We've actually introduced ourselves in a couple of the other webinars, but just real quickly, Intertribal Software, we're a company that basically works in data management with tribal governments. That's all we do. This year, we actually celebrated our 32nd year in business. We started in '93. We are located in Durant, Oklahoma. Our headquarters is there, although we especially after COVID, we're kind of scattered around the country. So we have team members kind of all over the country. But primarily, our focus for years has been to figure out the best way to provide data management solutions for tribal services programs. And over the years, we've worked with many people like the ones that will be sharing today to help us, one, understand the needs and the things that are important to data collection, data management, service delivery, and ultimately reporting. And so many times those reports wind up being directly related to funding and grant sources. So we work with a little over 60 tribes around the country doing something along those lines. Each tribe is sort of its own engagement with us, depending on their priorities. Obviously, our child care assistance product is something we've had in place for many years. I think if you were to go through the order, I believe that maybe Choctaw Nation was our first department that we worked with, followed by Cherokee and Muskogee Creek Nation, probably right there in about the same time. So all three of those tribal CCA programs were very early parts of us developing the CCA system. And, now we work across the nation with tribes in CCDF programs of all sizes. But obviously in our first webinar, we talked about the fact that the tribal data tracker was getting ready to be end of life, and that there would be no longer support added to that product. So we felt like there was some messaging there that was important. We actually have the ability, if somebody is currently on Tribal Data Tracker, to do a direct export of the data out of that system and into our OneTribe CCA system. And then in our second webinar, we talked about we did the demo and basically walked through some of the different components of the CCA program, how it works with providers and families and children, and then how we basically manage provider claim tracking and payments. And so that was in our second webinar. And really what we felt like was important, especially in our final webinar today, was for the other directors and workers that may be on the call to kind of hear from some of the users, some of the leadership from other CCDF programs, not only on how they use CCA, but really how they worked over time to move to a much more digital management way of taking in all the data required in the CCA program, and then working toward end of year reporting. And to hear it from the people that do it and be able to ask questions, this is just a great opportunity for everybody to learn from each other. And again, as we've said, we're grateful and thankful for all of the directors and workers that have joined today to share their background and story with CCA. So again, we'll go through the group today and let everybody sort of talk about it. We have a couple of specific questions that we've asked each person to kind of share that we felt like would be useful. None of this is set in stone, but and then as Jen mentioned, as different leaders are sharing their background and sort of their experiences, it's a great opportunity for some roundtable discussions and really opportunity for people to just ask questions. So again, thankful to everybody on the call and to Jen and her team. And I guess we'll go ahead and turn it over to the group for them to start sharing. And I think, Mike, you might go ahead and just, lead the order of the different participants and let them sort of start and walk through their bulleted items here. And that way we'll kind of stay on track.
Yeah, so I have reached out to a select group of people who I felt would be helpful to anybody that was looking at the child care assistance module. We have some older customers on the line. I've asked the Cherokee Nation and the Choctaw Nation, who's some of our oldest customers, to come on and just let people know if they have any questions about what was it like when you got started, what were the challenges and stuff like that. We have those older customers on there, and we also have the Delaware tribe on here, Peoria tribe, Lacey on here. She's a newer installation. So if anybody had any questions for her, like how was the installation process and how was training or how did you do this? If you have any of those questions, we have both of those types of tribes on here. And I would just encourage anybody. I see Josh from Wichita is on here. I've talked with Josh before in his former capacity, but I see now he's at child care assistant. So this would be an opportunity for those type of people to just say, hey, how did you guys do it? How'd you start? What's the process? We have those people on here just for your sourcing information. So
well, maybe just to kind of have some sort of order, maybe Bridget, you could go first, and then we'll go to Choctaw and then Muskogee and kind of work our way down that way.
Okay, I don't mind to go first. I'm glad you have some questions up there, or some topics for discussion to lead it. I was unsure about how that was going to go. So I actually have been with Cherokee Nation for over 20 years. I was here back in the paper days, and then I was gone for a period of time, and then I came back. And when I came back, they had moved to the CCA, Child Care Assistance software, but they hadn't been doing it a long time. And so, we moved. It was interesting to see the change from when I was here before and then when I came back, and we went to completely online or digital applications, keeping that. We still have our paper process as far as clients, parents still fill out their application and then submit that. We then enter their data into the CCA software and then do our approval letters from the system. It sends the approval letters out, sends the billing out, processes that. And then we scan that into Laserfish and we have those virtual files. And the benefit for us is we have several field offices. And so actually 4 additional offices. And so when there is somebody gone from that office, a parent is then referred to a different office, and any person at that different office can look at those files. And so that has been a great benefit in using Laserfish and the system. In real time, I can look up a note that somebody has entered from somewhere else. And then I would say, as far as spreadsheets, we utilize the reports that are in the system. I will have to brag on Intertribal for this, especially when I first came back on board in 2019. We had some needs in regards to reporting, and they still come up from time to time. We had a directive from administration not too long ago that required us to add some additional data to our system. And I got with Intertribal, Kevin to be exact, and I was like, here are the things we need. And they have been great to work with us on that, especially if it's data that we're already collecting in the system and we're just trying to put that in a report format. That has been great. So I just kind of want to brag on that for a minute. There's always challenges too when you do go to a virtual system. So how we dealt with that is sometimes you have human error and maybe they miss a paper or something scanning that in. And so we just did some internal processes, like where we ask our eligibility staff to hang on to paperwork like for a month in a file and to make sure nothing, comes back. And then we go ahead and shred it and then keep our virtual files. And so that would be one of the bigger transitions, I think, when we went to a virtual actual file, that we don't keep paper files on clients. I can't really speak to about staff turnover. I mean, pretty much we keep the same staff. We have had some recently, but that had to do more with, we had a new child development center open prior. And so some of those staff just moved internally. And so we had some vacancies, but we tend to hold on to them. So somebody else might have some comments on that. How has the end of year grant reporting improved, having implemented digital data management solution? So we are a 102477 tribe. And so I think most everybody has heard of that. Our CCDF funding is consolidated into 1477 plan. And as far as reporting for childcare, I've been able to use this same system during the transition. The statistical data that is required by 477 is the same data that is on the ACF 700. So that's been a smooth transition, and I've just been able to use those numbers. And then for 477, a big part of that is the narrative, which, that it comes out from up here and reporting from.
No button to push there, right?
Yeah. I wish there was, although
I
if I can figure out the AI, maybe,
Yeah. It could happen.
It could happen. And then about adding the cost of OneTribe and Laserfish to our grant budget. I mean, that's fit right in under our admin cost with our CCDF 477 funding. It didn't change when we went into 477. It's an allowable cost. I feel like, especially for this size, that it's a very reasonable cost. We have every month we process 2,000 claims or 2,000 billing forms. We have about 2,000 children, and then our unduplicated number at the end of the year is a little over 3,000 children that we serve annually, and I think that translates to about 1,600 families. So there's a lot. And you know, the system has never had any trouble handling that. And like I said, we have our field offices. We have all this multiple staff on it. We have also, I mentioned this, we have also utilized this system for tracking for our training and technical assistance programs from our resource and referral. We've also added some tracking for grants. We give out quality improvement grants, so there's tracking for that. I don't know if InterTribe will want me to go into that, but that was some of the customization that they have done for us. Now we have paid, you know, we talk with them, and they have a meeting, turn around, provide us a quote, and we go over that to make sure it was what I had requested. And then they go ahead and work on that and implement that, and it all works great. So it's what I have. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer if I can.
Any questions for Bridget?
Well, this is Jen, and something that came up for me that is sort of a theme from one of our last conversations is sort of the expansiveness that that this offers. And so, Bridget, it's not really a question, but I'm excited to hear that you shared the capabilities of tracking. You said trainings and I forget the last thing you just said. The two other
technical
things.
Assistance and grants.
Okay, technical assistance and grants, which is something I think we kind of heard from other people in our previous calls of like what things more broadly in the program can I capture and can I work with. So yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful.
Yeah, and I might add on too, because I don't know how many tribes do that, but we call it licensing, but we have our monitoring program. I mean, ultimately we recognize DHS licensing and we go by that. But we have a MOA, and so our licensing workers go out and have a partnership with them. But we also track all those monitoring visits in the systems. It lets them know when, you know, a provider is due to go out and have another visit. So things like that. And then it was really important to help track for our grants and training and technical assistance. Now we can run a report and say we did this many technical assistance visits to these providers for this month and that kind of thing.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bridget.
Sure.
You bet. Elizabeth, we'd love for you to kind of go through the list as you best can. And obviously me and Mike were like date and time stamping directors at Choctaw CCA back to Michelle Holloway and through Monona. And so anyhow, there's a long history there, but you know, we'd love to hear sort of from your standpoint how the journey's been, and if you have some stuff to share, it'd be awesome.
Okay. So I've been with CCA for about 7 years. When I came on, we did everything by paper. Claims, everything were all printed out. We had, you know, thousands of sheets of paper every single month that we would mail out and then get back in and process and everything. And so one of our transitions has been rather than printing everything out, scanning in 17 different times, we have the capability of saving those as a PDF and emailing them to the providers. And that's one of the biggest, that has been probably our biggest transition from paper to electronic files. And then also our recertification process, they've been doing a very similar thing. They save everything as a PDF and email those as opposed to paper. So that has been a wonderful transition for us that has helped greatly. And so, and as far as challenges, I mean, just, you know, as long as we communicate those things with our staff, everything's actually gone very smoothly, if I can say that. And so it's been a pretty good process. We haven't had a whole lot of turnover, but when we do have someone that, you know, fills a new spot, you know, having the directions for everything we do, you know, in order for them to be able to see how, you know, it's we really haven't had any challenges. But it's helped to be able to have those processes written down. I basically could mirror everything that Bridget said. As she was talking, I was like, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. So it's been a really good a thing for us to be able to utilize this system. I've used a lot of data entry systems over years, and this one is a very user-friendly, and we can customize. We've had a couple of things added that we've needed just as far as reporting and stuff too. So, and they're always wonderful to help us. As far as our reporting, we're also 102477, and so our end of year reporting is very easy. We're able to pull that report up and put it with our narrative and go on, and it's been wonderful. And same with budgeting. It's been one of those things that's been there. Like I said, I've only been here for 7 years, and so it was one of those things that's been budgeted in long before I was here. So I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Elizabeth, what's your child count approximately now? I know it's been a while since I've been over there.
I believe we currently serve 1360, somewhere around there, give or take.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I guess let's move on to Joe and Newman and let them kind of tell their background at Muskogee Creek.
Hang on one second. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jen actually has proposed a question in the chat, and I don't know if everybody's paying attention to the chat, but her question is specifically for those users that are on right now that are using childcare assistance from Intertribal. Her question is, does the tribe use CCA for childcare and other programs within the tribe, or is it just childcare? And
Talk Foundation with childcare assistance.
Yep, that would be my assumption, but I didn't want to just answer for everybody.
And that's also true for Cherokee Nation, as far as I know. I'm not aware of anybody else using it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jen, to that question, the other modules of OneTribe that we've kind of alluded to over the past 2 webinars, those are being used in many other departments, like at Choctaw Nation, but they're pretty specific, like CCA. So if you were to look at our higher ed enrollment or something like that, they're kind of designed for those kind of programs and what they do. Just like CCA and is really designed to manage CCDF and provider licensing and those kind of things. So it's a good question, though.
I can add with the Peoria tribe. We currently use CCA, but I know our housing authority, Peoria Housing Authority, uses Intertribal maybe as a portal. I'm not entirely sure. Kevin might know that more than I do, but yeah, I know as far as tribal entity, we use CCA mostly. I'm trying to convince our tribal leadership to do a portal with Intertribal, so slowly, maybe.
I'll talk with you about that separate, Lacey, because that's actually, we would want to probably work something out with a Laserfish for you.
Yeah. Yes.
So we definitely would look into that, and we've done some Laserfish forms with other groups to allow their providers to complete their claim forms that way and submit through there, and then you would just work your claims as normal. But yeah, we can talk about that separate.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, Lacey, just to let you know, Lacey, I am in conversations with Bryce. So
great.
We
actually have a business committee meeting tonight, and I saw that there was a vote for a portal, and so I was actually curious of if it was you guys or not. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, we're trying to nail down a date where we can have a conversation about exactly what he wants to look at. But yeah, we've been trading messages.
Great. I'd love to hear it.
Hey, Kevin, Josh had another question. Sorry, in the messages. If you want to jump to it.
I'm reading it now.
Provider appreciation. Okay, so
you guys can go on. This one's going to take me a minute to read, process, and respond to.
Yeah, let's go back to Newman and Joe.
Good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, from Newman from Muskogee Nation. I just kind of just give a little brief history, and I'll give it to Joe. She's the one. Her department doesn't utilizes it more than anybody. But we, Muskogee Nation, we were a test pilot program for the data tracker, and we used it till to the point to where it wasn't doing anything what we needed it to do for our system and for our workers. So uh, when we reached out to Intertribal to uh, develop a new software for us, and we was able to contribute to all of the information that we needed and the things that we needed for it to do for us, and it's really been helpful for us. And I know that Joe's got a little more to be able to tell you, but we've been through the data tracker. We've moved from there because it wasn't quite what we needed to do, and didn't have the support that you actually really needed.
Thank you, Newman.
This is Joe with the Office of Child Care here at Muskogee Creek Nation. I'm the subsidy supervisor, and I'm in my 29th year with the tribe.
But it's like number 8 or something.
Yeah, I did see. Yes, I did.
And probably I don't want to duplicate the conversation that Bridget and the lady from Choctaw Nation, but probably one of my biggest things is when COVID hit and we were having to telework, then we were able to continue to provide services as far as eligibility, recertification, process provider payments. We were still, I guess we had our providers mailing in their agreements each month. So we switched to them emailing. And so we've continued to do that even after COVID. So that's probably one of my biggest things, was being able to continue to provide services. And, it was with the help of CCA and Laserfish. And we do have a application that's e-form on the Muskogee Nation website. We're able to run reports. Sometimes we have providers that need to know, was this child paid? How much were they paid? And I can run them a report for each child that they have in their care, or all the children that they have in their care, or if it's a timeline of from a beginning date to the end date. As far as I feel like with a staff turnover, it is an easy program to use. It just takes a little bit of time to get familiar with it, of what it can do. And at first, when I first started using it, it was a little intimidating because you're coming from another program that didn't do as much, or that we outgrew. So it is user friendly, very user friendly. You just have to be curious and click on some of those buttons and see what it will do. I will say for Intertribal, anytime that I've needed any changes, they've provided good support. If I needed some forms change, they've changed my reports or my letters or my agreements, or I can't say enough about the staff well, especially Tanner. He's the one that usually I go through, but he's always willing to listen and try to meet what I need. As far as the year-end grant, the 700 report, I've not had any issues with the numbers. I've been able to kind of double check to make sure that we're on track. And I guess kind of the other thing that it does, you know, we have a lot of families that have single parents, but then there's a absent parent that may share a custody of that child, and we're able to serve both parents, a non-custodial and the custodial, with one child. And the beauty of that CCA, it only counts that child one time, so you don't have to remember that, oh, this family is on got this child on the program twice, but it automatically does that. Um, and I'm probably going backwards, but I don't know, the challenge during the transition when we switched from Travel Tracker, um, it was just learning what this was going to do, and we did have a training. I can't remember who all came, but we all the users came in and we had a training, I think maybe a day and a half training, and they showed us what it would do, and we were able to ask questions. And even the information that was on Tribal Tracker, it was able to be moved over to CCA. So we didn't have to spend time re-entering information that we had already put in Tribal Tracker. Tribal Tracker was great in its time, but as a large allocation, we did outgrow what it was able to accomplish for us. And I and as far as the OneTribe, the cost of it, I believe, and Newman, you know, handles the financial part of it, but I believe it was an allowable cost. And each year we just renew our, I guess, our subscription maybe, or our user fee. And I've been really happy, and I can't say enough. I always I go to trainings and I sit through when Travel Tracker would come, but and I noticed last year when they gave us notice that Travel Tracker wasn't, going to be available after September. And even in March, when I went to the training in Tulsa with ACF, I did give out Mike's number and name. And, I was able to have it on my Surface Pro. So I was able to show some people, what it did. So I just can't say enough good things about CCA and the staff that is our support. And that's my spiel.
That's great, Joe. Yeah, we appreciate that, and we've enjoyed working with you and Newman and the team for, like you said, for quite some time. I would take just a moment to say that having great software it helps to have great software engineers, but it also helps to have great input from end users that understand their processes and their needs. And those relationships, and we feel like, the sort of the luck or the blessing of intertribal software is the fact that we've had those relationships and many times for 20 plus years. And so we're constantly learning from our user base and getting that input. And nothing ever is, they could change the ACF 700 tomorrow. They have in the past. Those changes we have to be reticent of and be, ready and willing to update when needed. So those are all parts of just building great software and having a great software company. So I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and I guess Lacey, will let you go next, and then Victoria, you can wrap this up.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, my name is Lacey Hickey. I'm with the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma, and we have been using CCA since January, I think is when we officially launched. And it honestly has been a great thing. I've been with the tribe for just a little over, we'll say 8 years now. I've been in CCDF for the past just a little over 3 years. And whenever I had come into CCDF, we were using Tribal Tracker, and it was not user friendly in my opinion. And I had to do a lot of excessive, uh, you know, things on the side that Tribal Tracker didn't do. I'm a big Excel spreadsheet girl. And so CCA has helped for me to not have to keep track of Excel spreadsheets and update them and all of that, it does it for me. And so that has been a great transition for us. And then I think as far as the claim form process, that has been the biggest relief for me. The Peoria tribe has just recently, within the last, I think, 2 years, just started doing our accounting like requisitions online. It's been on paper this entire time. And so we were processing claim forms on paper, doing paper requisitions, printing them, getting the 3 signatures, doing all that, and then still having to go and log everything on Tribal Tracker, which was a 5-step process, depending on what you were doing. Just the same as adding a new family or certifying a different provider. Like, it was overcomplicated. So I was a big push on, we need to get a new system. And, it was a big cost to budget in. And so thankfully, whenever they came out and said Tribal Tracker support was not going to be there any longer, I said, this is the moment. So let's do it. And so yeah, so thankfully we were able to do that. And I think I'm gonna look at my questions here to make sure I'm going along. Challenges with transition, obviously that I don't feel like we had any challenges. Like I said, I'm a big system person, and so it was a much easier transition on my end because it helped reduce a lot of steps that we typically did with Tribal Tracker. And so, a 5-step process on Tribal Tracker is realistically a 1-step process on CCA. And so that helped with that. And so I was really appreciative of that. And staff turnover, we haven't we've had a lot going on in the Peoria tribe the last 6 to 8 months. We have had some turnover recently. And so within my department and elsewhere. And so having CCA has been a relief for that, because with turnover, you have less staff until you get replacements. And so CCA has made it so easy to go in and still keep up to date on things, even with the extra workload that a few of us have. And so if it was still Tribal Tracker, I would probably be pulling my hair out a little bit because it would be a struggle to still continue my daily work with CCDF and childcare and just assisting families on top of everything else. But yeah, we haven't had turnover as far as, having to train anyone. But I know if we have, once we get some new CCF people in our department, I have no issues being able to train them and show them how to use CCA in comparison to what we've used in the past with Tribal Tracker. As far as grant reporting, we haven't had to do our ACF 700 yet because it was submitted already for us using Tribal Tracker. But like Bridget had said, I think using Curiosity when you're messing around with the system, that'll be your friend. Don't be afraid to, look at different reporting, see what it does, and see, different things that you can or that you can't get. If it's something that you wish you want, you can reach out and to support and see if it's something they can do for you. But I messed around with the ACF 700 reporting. It was super easy to me, I felt like. So that's a relief whenever it comes time to report that. And then as far as the cost, I mean, we're strictly a CCDF grant, and so that really wasn't an issue there. We did have to do a sole source approval with our business committee. That way we didn't have to do the whole getting other quotes. We knew we wanted intertribal, and so we did a sole source, and so that was pretty easy there. And then as far as the yearly, we just budget that in with our typical yearly budgets that we do just with our childcare centers and everything. So, but overall, training was great. Billy was great when he came on site and answered a lot of questions. And then we started using, we don't do monitoring reports, we use the state, but to keep track of it, I started using CCA to keep track of it and to print on any reporting, just so I can say, did I receive monitoring reports from these providers or not? And so I've slowly started using that. And then we are coming into our auditing. The tribe gets audited usually in June. And so we're looking at being able to use the auditing purpose on CCA. So our auditors that come in, they can go in and do their own audit instead of us having to kind of fish around things for them. And so we're hoping that'll work out for us a little bit this year. But I think that's really it. Unless anyone has any particular questions for me.
That was great, Lacey. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great, Lacey. And it's good perspective of a newer implementation, and how that went. And I think, Josh had a question popped up about sort of network friendly. I think that was one of the big differentiators early on between Tribal Data Tracker and CCA is it's a modern, web application that can have 10 users or 50 users or there's very few limitations to sharing data. There is security, so you can set up roles and be able to control what certain users do or don't do. But I know for a lot of the Tribal Data Tracker users, so many years ago, it was really hard to network that software and to have multiple people using it. So those are all great points. The other thing I would mention just on that, I've heard some different comments on the turnover. It's great to hear when people say we don't have much turnover. We haven't had a lot of turnover. That's great. Whenever you implement good data management processes and systems, and it takes time sometimes to get around to doing your SOPs, that's where being able to transition a new employee into an existing process is so much easier than if you have a lot of spreadsheets and paper processes or whatever. It's a lot harder to transition a new staff member into that process. So hopefully, although many of those benefits are probably ahead of that, but having a good data management system can be very helpful when you're bringing on new staff. So.
I would like to add too, as far as the question on is it network friendly? I will say that when we had Tribal Tracker, if I was out of state for a CCDF conference or what it may be, I had no access because it was on our server. And so with CCA, I can get on the browser and I could still help clients when I'm not in town in my office. And so I will say that was another really big plus with that because, work doesn't stop when you're at a conference, and you never know when you have clients that say, I need childcare ASAP tomorrow. And where, if I'm not able to access Tribal Tracker and other files and such, CCA helped greatly with that.
I want to make one point on that, Lacey. You need to be VPN'd into your network.
Yes.
To access
It's not VPN isn't great.
It's not an open source website. It is on the intranet.
Yes.
At the tribe, and you have to VPN in. So, but yes, provided you have a way to do a virtual private network, you absolutely can access from anywhere. Yep.
Yes. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, great, Lacey. Thank you again so much. It's been wonderful to work with you and your team. We're excited to have, Peoria Tribe. We've actually worked with Peoria Housing for a very long time, and Jason Dollarhide over there has been a great friend for years. So excited to have you on, and I guess to sort of wrap up, if we could get Victory to share, and we'll get some closing questions here in a little bit.
Hi there, I'm Victoria Spotted Bear, and I work for the Delaware Tribe of Indians. And we have recently switched to the CCA program. I would say we've been with them for almost a year. Don't quote me on that, but almost a year. And we have started it. We had to revitalize the subsidy program at the Delaware Tribe of Indians. So it's a one-woman show, and CCA has made it possible to feel like I have two extra people with me. It just feels the more I use it, the more it works for me. More the more the program works for me. Um, I'm not sure of different reports and things of that nature. I'm just now getting to play around with that because I had to hand enter all of our people that we first got on the program because I wasn't using CCA correctly. I didn't realize some certain things. So, anyways, there's definitely trial and error, but this has been the best program so far. And I know it's been my only program so far, but it really encompasses the whole view of what I believe subsidy work is. I believe that they really encompass that and that we don't have to go elsewhere for information within our own program. I hope that makes sense.
That does.
It does.
I think, Victory, that what we were hoping with the different people sharing today is that everybody's at a different place in their journey. The buzzword bingo now is digital transformation. We're all trying to go from paper to software to databases to digital documents, but everybody's in a different place. And I think there's great benefit when we can bring people together, similar backgrounds, similar goals and objectives, and let them share. If you're getting ready to go down this path, you haven't started yet, someone like Victory can definitely share and let you know that, there's a starting point and there's a time of getting familiar. But obviously one of the points that was made is intertribal software. We have a team of people. We're committed to being there when you need us and providing that support. Obviously, we have Billy on the call today, sort of our primary person for training, but people like Kevin and other people on the call, we provide, just a 30-minute call or a 15-minute call. You have a question, we're always there for that. So, but thank you, Victory, for sharing. That was really good. Jen, I think we can kind of turn it back to you for
Hey, Steve, can I just highlight one additional thing? And by the way,
PT.
first off, thanks for all the folks here who are OneTribe users who carved out a time in their incredibly busy day to come share your story with us. We appreciate it. The one other thing I wanted to call out, and I know sometimes it's intimidating if you have folks like Choctaw or Cherokee, which are obviously, larger tribes with a lot more resources. Victoria, thank you for sort of highlighting the fact that OneTribe CCA also does wonders for smaller tribes without as many resources. And it's, folks who may be listening to this or maybe watching it later, this should not be intimidating. Or if you're a smaller tribe, you should not feel like it's out of reach or won't apply to you. In fact, in some ways, it may apply in a different way and really help to make your life easier and help you deliver higher quality services to your members and your constituents. So just wanted to quickly say that.
Tori, I could believe when you said that almost a year using CCA, I had to go look at my emails and it was October. So that's unbelievable. Time is flying by.
I knew it was right around the corner.
Yep.
Well, Jen, I think we'll hand it back to you. And again, we really appreciate you and Monica and Nika just hosting this platform and forum for people to share their data management stories. So.
All right. Well, before we close out, I want to make sure that we have no more questions from people joining us today. You can drop those in the chat or you can come off mute. And then I have a question. I know Josh has been asking a lot about sort of how would this work in his use case scenario. And something that came up to me that he said that I would love to hear a little bit more about is how does CCA work for those with their own tribal centers? I've seen the system, and so I kind of understand how it works for the subsidy side of things, but how does it also work in function for those with centers that they're operating?
So I think that conversation comes up often for us where they may be looking for more of a daycare center management system that has things like meal planning and bus routes and parent pickup, times the parent dropped off the child, who's allowed to pick them up. So there's almost like a whole separate set of data management needs for a child care center. And so that's something at this point we haven't tried to, I guess, build into CCA. We've tried to keep it much more of a subsidy licensing management solution. Now it is common that a tribal user will set up their child care centers as a provider in CCA and then make those subsidy payments to essentially to their own daycare centers through their grant and through their CCDF program. But definitely, we're not at this point trying to be a daycare center management solution. There's a lot to that. There are a couple vendors out there that just seem to sort of have fairly mature products in that area. Not something that I'm saying we won't consider at some point, but at this point, we're trying not to be that. We really try to be the best in the CCDF subsidy management area.
I can add to as far as having a center and using the CCA software. So we have almost three centers. We're currently building a third one right now. And so we actually do have a separate software just for childcare centers. And it is correct because it comes with a lot of other data that you needed to collect as far as parent communication, meal collection, like what their breakfast, lunch, and snack that they're taking in, diaper changes, all of that. And so, if Intertribal did have a software like that, like I'm sure it would be something that we'd be interested in. But as far as using CCA, we just strictly use it for subsidy. And we do actually input our centers into the system and pay our systems like we do any of our other providers. So essentially we're paying ourselves, but we have that to track it.
Lacey, so you use CCA to track that component?
To track the subsidy component, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's really
how
how Go
ahead.
I'm sorry. And that's really how Choctaw Nation does too. We do everything through subsidy. We do build our Choctaw Nation centers into CCA, but strictly for subsidy purposes. And then our centers use ProCare for that other data management.
Elizabeth, since you mentioned that, the question from Josh at the moment is there an integration with CCA and ProCare? I'm not aware of one at the moment. I don't know that we've even looked into that with you. Is there an integration with that right now?
I don't believe so. I believe anything that we get from ProCare, they literally print it off and scan it into us. So
Okay. So Josh, I was typing an answer and she just happened to mention that they use ProCare for their centers as well. So I just wanted to go ahead and bring that up. If there is an integration available with ProCare, we could definitely look into it with the use of an API or anything like that. I don't think that we've done that research yet. So that's something we could definitely look into.
I appreciate it.
Agreed.
Kevin, I think it would also be great as far as integration goes. So we follow the nutrition program at our centers, the CACFP. And so we have to use another software to track the data as far as CACFP goes with our attendance and our children that are enrolled for reduced or free lunches, et cetera. And so essentially we have three different softwares that we have to use. And so it's one of those things where, if you could have all of them in one,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It'd be super beneficial for all centers.
Yeah, we might need to set up some separate time to talk about that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to mention that we also use another software for tracking our inventory. For the life of me, I can't think of what it's called, but kind of going back to having to operate our own childcare centers, that there's a lot of inventory requirements from DHS. So in order to make sure that we are providing that, we have to put a lot of data into that software, and it is very time consuming.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah. Anywhere where we can utilize an integration that'll make your lives easier, we're definitely open to looking into that. So if you have those other programs, we can definitely set some separate meetings, look into that, get some discussions going with the other company if that's where it needs to go, and discuss, is there an opportunity to set up an API integration that would allow you to share that data between those systems. So,
I just looked it up. It's called WASP barcode.
Okay, I'm familiar with that, Josh. Yeah, that's a little bit more of a kind of a generic inventory management software, but they've been around a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just want to interact. Steve and Mike introduced us to a software program company called with Kangaroo Time that does the billing, and we're working with them to get that set up for our 7 centers. And there's other parts of it that we wanted to explore, and that might be a possibility of tying it into a CCA too, probably with that company that Steve and Mike helped us get in contact with that group.
Yeah, I agree, Newman. There's definitely possibilities there, and I guess the good news is that databases talking to each other nowadays is much better than it used to be. And Kevin was throwing the API acronym out here, but that's probably in simple words, that's how software A talks to software B and back and forth is through these APIs. So this is great feedback from the team here, and obviously there's relationships between all these systems, especially the fact that that's all our children are being served within them. So this is good input, and we'll obviously want to keep this conversation going over time.
Real quick,
thank
one
you.
more question I had that I just thought of was in regards to our directors for our child care centers, that they have to work with our other tribes in order for them to do the billing to get basically reimbursed for the child care for subsidy. Some of the tribes require them to use their timesheets, and then some of them allow us to use our own timesheets. So one question I'm wondering is, are we able to do something like fillable forms where we are able to easily input the information on their forms in the software?
we would do that through the use of Laserfish forms. We could create any number of claim forms that you need that way, and allow them to have a access point to complete the form and then submit it to you. And that way you could do it that way. But yes, that would be just an additional, piece. We would just need to know, look at how many claim forms you need so we can review that and determine, what that effort would look like to develop. So.
Thank you.
Great. Well,
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh, for your questions, and thank you everyone for joining us. I want to give a special thank you to Elizabeth, Lacey, Bridget, Joe, Victory, and Newman. Thank you all for sharing your story with us and giving some insight as to how you all utilize this software and how it functions in your program. So we really appreciate that. And thank you, Intertribal Software, for delivering these and this opportunity to share some resources that are available for tribes. We will follow up this conversation with an email from us with a evaluation that we hope you will fill out. I will drop the link in the chat as well. But this helps us improve our webinars moving forward. But please fill that out. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, to NICA, or to Intertribal Software. We're happy to connect you and to get you moving in the right direction. Thank you, everyone, for your afternoon.
Thank you,
Jen.
Jen. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.